Greetings, friends. This is a special collaboration I'm doing with my good friend, Unit 522. Being that my channel started with dreams and nightmares being the initial focus, he wanted me to share with you a personal nightmare he had not too long ago. He wanted me to read it because he knows that I, along with many of my dedicated followers, have a knack for analyzing and interpreting bizarre events, even dreams. Let's see if we can help him out a little bit. As a side note, unlike all my other videos, this story was principally written by Unit 522 himself. Over on his channel, you'll be able to hear his narration of a true story I wrote for him. When you're done with this video, be sure to go check out my personal story as told by Unit 522, and make sure you tell him that Mr. X sent you. Now, here we go. I want to tell you guys about this nightmare I had the other night. It may not be the scariest, but for me it was very unsettling, and I can't help but to think that there's some symbolism here. Please let me know what you think. I apologize if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I'll do my best to lay it out for you. Anyway, the dream started off on an outdoor basketball court in a downtown setting. The sun shined brightly down onto the concrete floor. The whole situation had me feeling out of place, because I'm probably the least athletic person you'll ever meet. At first, I was completely alone on the court, so I just started walking laps around it. But when I turned the second corner, there suddenly appeared a bustle of random people. Strangers of all ages were swarming in. They simply stood or shuffled around talking to each other, ignoring me, except for one particular individual amongst them. There was a big, bald, and extremely obese man standing next to my path. He had no shirt on, and his gut protruded over the belt line of his ragged blue jeans. The man was also covered head to toe in tribal tattoos. He honestly looked, to me, like an overweight Yakuza enforcer. The man looked at me intensely, grinning and revealing a mouthful of gold teeth. But that wasn't the weirdest thing. The weirdest thing was, he was awkwardly sidestepping closer to me as I approached. It was really disturbing to look at. I quickened my pace to make my way past the gigantic smiling tattoo-covered weirdo as fast as I could. When I passed him, I didn't look back. I came to the edge of the court and noticed that it dropped off into an endless ocean. There was a boardwalk attached that extended from the court to a wooden pier that had two ships docked. I know it sounds crazy. I hope I haven't lost you. I walked up the boardwalk to the pier and noticed that the sky was now a gloomy gray color. The first ship that was docked was a medium-sized houseboat. The second looked like an enormous, scale replica of the Titanic. As I stopped and looked at the ships, I had this bizarre feeling that I had to board the Titanic for some reason. I walked up to the nearby stairway that led up to it, and there was a stream of random people in line on the stairway, waiting to board the massive vessel. There was a Jamaican guy in formal attire standing at the top of the stairway, taking tickets from people as they came onto the ship. I remember thinking, damn, I don't have a ticket, so I just stood there and watched everyone else. My memory is honestly a little hazy when it comes to what happened next, but I'll recall it as best I can for you. All I know is that I made my way onto the houseboat, which was parked directly behind the Titanic. I heard the distant shout of someone yelling frantically that the ships were still attached, and that they needed to delay the departure. The houseboat was much smaller than the other ship, so I couldn't see exactly what was going on the Titanic's deck. I looked down and saw that there was a hitch connecting the two boats, with a series of humongous iron chains. All of a sudden, I heard a loud horn and saw that the massive Titanic had begun moving forward. The iron chains stretched out until they reached their limit, and a loud clank rang out as they finally ran out of slack. Somehow, the Titanic ship began to rock side to side. The screams of the ship's passengers could be heard, as they were tossed violently overboard and below. Bodies upon bodies flew off the ship like rag dolls as it continued rocking. Let me put this into perspective for you. Imagine a ship the size of the Titanic, rocking back and forth at the same speed and velocity as a wooden rocking chair. It was quite a freaky and unsettling sight to behold. I know the physics may not add up, but after all, it was a dream. Moments later, I found myself plummeting into the ocean as well. I guess all the commotion in the water sent me overboard. I began to descend into the depths of my watery grave. The water was as unforgivingly cold as it was blue. The ocean seemed to lead down to a bottomless pitch-black void. To make things worse, the sea appeared to be similar to a black hole, as it was pulling everything in the water toward a certain point. As I gazed down into it, I knew that what I was looking at was the end of everything. I looked back up to find a horrifying sight. There were hundreds, no, thousands of people sinking into the void like I was. I can only describe it as raining corpses underwater. I say corpses because as I sank, I got a close-up view of one of the falling bodies, and to my horror, it was in a decaying skeletal state. They all were. The people tossed overboard the Titanic had already become withered and rotted. Their empty eye sockets stared at me as they made their descent. I could feel the same thing happening to me. I watched as my hands turned into bones. I could feel the coldness of the ocean passing through my exposed rib cage as I continued to sink deeper. Among all this chaos, somehow the Titanic was split into two halves and fell into the depths as well. It sank unnaturally fast, defying the laws of physics once again. It was only a matter of seconds before the two halves descended past me, disappearing into the abyss. I strained my neck to look up, tearing off a piece of decaying flesh as I did. I saw the remains of the houseboat about to come down on me, and just before it hit me, that's when I finally woke up. All right, my friends, let's see if we could come through for Unit 522 here. This was a very interesting and haunting dream. Honestly, I'm not quite sure what he meant when he first said it wasn't very scary. Imagine being in that world, not even realizing that you're dreaming at the time. Trust me when I tell you, it is not fun. So, I've decided to kind of recap and break down this dream into its individual elements, or at least the ones that stand out enough for me to have an opinion on what they might have meant. Starting out, being on the basketball court, alone, a place that is uncomfortable, unfamiliar to him. It seemed like perhaps he was feeling alone in general. And then all of a sudden, when all these people start showing up, it's the thing that you feel like you wanted at first. It's the company that you were looking for when you were alone in this strange place. But with that company, with that relief, the fat man shows up. He presents a clear threat. Something that you don't understand, but have this innate sense of danger emanating from this bizarre character. And in a weird way, he could also be a reflection of yourself. Perhaps it's connected. The fact that you consider yourself a non-athletic person, you're standing on a basketball court, and you feel threatened by this morbidly obese, scary individual. Perhaps that's your mind telling you that you need to get a little bit more athletic, challenge your body, just as much as I'm sure you challenge your mind on a regular basis. So moving on, that unfamiliar place, at least it's on solid ground. Until, that is, you realize that it drops off suddenly into a deep, dark ocean. Whenever I see an ocean in my dreams, it never makes me feel comfortable. Even if I was in an unfamiliar, solid ground location, I would prefer that any day over an ocean, but nevertheless, you ventured out onto that ocean because you had some more choices to make. And when you got to the end of the pier, seeing the gigantic and extravagant vessel, the Titanic, in direct comparison to a modestly sized houseboat, your heart was clearly set on the larger ship. You wanted to experience that luxury and that coveted position to be an honored guest on the Titanic. But sadly, as the Jamaican man so kindly pointed out to you, you didn't belong there on that big ship. There wasn't a place for you. Anyway, the difficult decision of whether to board the Titanic or the houseboat was kind of taken out of your hands when you were transported to the less extravagant option. But then, you witnessed a disaster. The people that you were envying not long ago were now being hurled to their doom. And the crazy thing was this: no matter what choice you made, whether you tried to sneak onto the Titanic even though you didn't belong there, and rub elbows with the more affluent and supposedly important people, your fates and theirs were inextricably linked. And in this case, the link was quite literal. The set of impossibly large iron chains. Your fates were tied together so that no matter what path you took, no matter what path they took, in the end, you were all going down into the abyss. I actually got this feeling even before I finished reading your story, Unit. Maybe your mind is telling you that life is fragile, and no matter what you do, you will end up in the void, just like everything inevitably does. I certainly don't want to end this video in a negative light, but really, when you think about it, no one can prove it either way. Just like the entire universe is headed toward a certain death, every human life, being as brief as the blink of an eye, will eventually come to a halt. And that's why I think it's important for us to try our best every day. Be the best human being you can be. Be the best version of yourself you can be. Get better, improve, train. Be a light to someone else. Be the voice that guides them. Be the hand that raises them up. And whatever you do, my friends, never take your life for granted. It may not mean anything on a universal scale that you exist, but it means something to me, and I'm sure to many other people as well. So, thank you so much for sharing this story with us, Unit 522. And my friends, thank you for listening. If you have any other insight about this dream, please let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget, head over to Unit 522's channel. Subscribe to him if you haven't already, and check out my personal story over there. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and share it with your friends. I'm Mr. X, and may your nights be full of dreams.
Hello everyone, I'm Unit 522, and I hope you enjoyed that story. It's a story I wrote myself about a nightmare I had a while ago, and I decided to write it down and share the experience with everyone. This video has been a collaboration between myself and Mr. X. I would like to thank him very much for featuring my story on his channel. In the description you will find a link to my channel, where you can listen to a story that was written by Mr. X called The Freezing Man. And I hope to see you there. And as always, sweet dreams.